just use ChatGPT or a contract I found online to save money? Now, let me preface my answer by saying that I truly feel you if you're considering this option. Lawyers are expensive. Pulling a template contract that you find online or using artificial intelligence to create one is cheap or even free. And you can do it essentially instantaneously or with 5 minutes of searching or 10 minutes of providing information into a fill-in form service. But I've seen the results, and 95% of the time, they're bad or even disastrous. So just a few examples here. References to inapplicable laws. Contracts that are entered into between parties in one state but purport to be governed by the laws of another state that has absolutely no nexus to the matter when the choice of law and the differences between the states was material. Omission of material terms. Contracts that omitted material terms that were absolutely necessary to protect the client's interests and that would have been relevant and beneficial to a later dispute. Bizarre and sometimes dangerous errors. So contracts that were copy-pasted and contained bizarre, inaccurate, and irrelevant details that the client either didn't notice or didn't understand needed to be deleted. Use of the entirely wrong contract type. A contract in which someone named client intended to be a short-term independent contractor for a very specific and limited project somehow ended up being signed to an employment agreement with a multi-year term and some very unfavorable early termination provisions. Accidentally negotiating against yourself. Worst of all, contracts where the client unintentionally negotiated against their own interests, in a few cases in extremely significant ways. For example, one case where the client presented a buyer-friendly contract when the client was actually the seller, and in an extreme case, the client actually gave away essentially a chunk of their intellectual property for trivial consideration. Now, as long as the relationship between the contract parties is stable, no one really notices or cares what the contract says. People just go about business as usual. It's only when something goes wrong do the folks want to look at the original agreement, which is of course when you need the contract to be as protective of your interests as feasible. This is true whether it's an employment agreement, a lease, a purchase-sale agreement, a contract for goods or services, or anything. A good attorney will know how to perceive potential risks and liabilities and to mitigate them in advance, and can tailor the contract so that it is a true reflection of your goals. The money that you're saving up front by using a template is a fraction of what it will cost you to litigate a dispute or to cover liabilities that you thought the contract was imposing on the other party. Now, I do understand, again, that lawyers can be expensive, and the best solution is definitely not just to avoid using contracts entirely. You can be transparent with your attorney about your budget for legal fees, and she can help triage where your legal dollars are best spent. Now, this might mean creating a general form of employment agreement or a master services agreement that you can use again and again with just a few tweaks. Or it might mean her doing a consolidated review or revision of an existing document that focuses on the 20% of provisions that wind up causing 80% of the risk. A good lawyer does not want to run up a bill that you can't pay, and a great lawyer would rather spend 2 hours with you now than force you to spend 20 hours with her a year later when that AI-generated contract blows up in your face. If you're getting more from your relationship with AI than you are with your attorney, the solution isn't necessarily to lean more heavily on AI. It's to seriously consider whether you need to hire a new attorney. Business owners, have you tried outsourcing any of your legal work to AI? How were the results? Remember not to share anything confidential in the comments.